The Head of the District by Rudyard Kipling. There's a convict more in the central jail behind the old mud wall. There's a lifer less on the border trail, and the Queen's peace over all. Dear boys, the Queen peace over all. For we must bear our leaders' blame, on us the shame will fall, if we lift our hand from a fettered land, and the Queen's peace over all. Dear boys, the Queen's peace over all. The running of the Shindand. 1. The Indus had risen in flood without warning. Last night it was a formidable shallow. Tonight 5 miles of raving muddy water parted bank and caving bank. The river was still rising under the moon. A litter borne by 6 bearded men, all unused to the work, stopped in the white sand that bordered the whiter plain. "It's God's will," they said. "We dare not cross tonight, even in a boat. Let us light a fire and cook food. We be tired men." They looked at the litter inquiringly. Within, the deputy commissioner of Kotcombe Harson district lay dying of fever. They had brought him across country, 6 fighting men of a frontier clan that he had won over to the path of a moderate righteousness when he had broken down at the foot of their inhospitable hills. And Talentire, his assistant, rode with them, heavy-hearted as heavy-eyed with sorrow and lack of sleep. He had served under the sick man for 3 years, and had learned to love him as men associated in toil of the hardest learn to love or hate. Dropping from his horse, he parted the curtains of the litter and peered inside. Ord, old man, can you hear me? We have to wait till the river goes down. Worse luck." "I hear," returned a dry whisper. "Wait till the river goes down. I thought we should reach camp before dawn. Polly knows. She'll meet me." One of the litter men stared across the river and caught a faint twinkle of light on the far side. He whispered to Talentire, "There are his campfire and his wife. They will cross in the morning, for they have better boats. Can he live so long?" Talentire shook his head. Yardley Ord was very near to death. What need to vex his soul with hopes of a meeting that could not be? The river gulped at the banks, brought down a cliff of sand, and snarled the more hungrily. The littermen sought for fuel in the waste, dried camel thorn, and refuse of the camps that had waited at the ford. Their sword belts clinked as they moved softly in the haze of the moonlight, and Talentire's horse coughed to explain that he would like a blanket. "I'm cold too," said the voice from the litter. "I fancy this is the end. Poor Polly." Talentire rearranged the blankets. Koda Dad Khan, seeing this, stripped off his own heavy-wadded sheepskin coat and added it to the pile. "I shall be warm by the fire presently," said he. Talentire took the wasted body of his chief into his arms and held it against his breast. Perhaps if they kept him very warm, Ord might live to see his wife once more. If only blind Providence would send a 3-foot fall in the river. "That's better," said Ord faintly. "Sorry to be a nuisance, but is there anything to drink?" They gave him milk and whiskey, and Talentire felt a little warmth against his own breast. Ord began to mutter. "It isn't that I mind dying," he said. "It's leaving Polly in the district. Thank God, we have no children. Dick, you know, I'm dipped, awfully dipped. Debts in my first 5 years' service. It isn't much of a pension, but enough for her. She has her mother at home. Getting there is the difficulty, and you see, not being a soldier's wife." "We'll arrange the passage home, of course," said Talentire quietly. "It's not nice to think of sending round the hat, but, good Lord, how many men I lie here, and I remember had to do it. Morton's death, he was of my year. Shaughnessy is dead, and he had children. I remember he used to read us their school letters. What a bore we thought him. Evans is dead. Cutcombe Carson killed him. Ricketts of Menonian is dead, and I'm going too. Man that is born of a woman is small potatoes and few in the hill. That reminds me, Dick, the four Cruskay villages in our border want 1/3 remittance this spring. That's fair. Their crops are bad. See that they get it, and speak to Ferris about the canal. I should like to have lived till that was finished. It means so much to the North Indus villages. But Ferris is an idle beggar. Wake him up. You'll have charge of the districts till my successor comes. I wish they would appoint you permanently. You know the folk. I suppose it will be Bullows, though. Good man, but too weak for frontier work. And he doesn't understand the priests. The blind priest at Jagi will bear watching. You'll find it in my papers, in the uniform case, I think. Call the Krushu Keel men up. I'll hold my last public audience. Koda Dan Khan! The leader of the men sprang to the sides of the litter, his companions following. Men, I'm dying, said Ord quickly, in the vernacular, and soon there will be no more Ord Sahib to twist your tails and prevent you from raiding cattle. God forbid this thing, broke out the deep bass chorus. The Sahib is not going to die. Yes, he is, and then he will know whether Mohammed speaks true or Moses. But you must be good men when I am not here. Such of you as live in our borders must pay your taxes quietly as before. I have spoken of the villages to be gently treated this year. Such of you as live in the hills must refrain from cattle lifting, and burn no more thatch, and turn a deaf ear to the voice of the priests, who, not knowing the strength of the government, would lead you into foolish wars, wherein you will surely die, and your crops be eaten by strangers. And you must not sack any caravans, and must leave your arms at the police posts when you come in, as has been your custom, and by order. And Talatir Sahib will be with you, but I do not know who takes my place. I speak now true talk, for I am as it were already dead, my children. For though ye be strong men, ye are children. And thou art our father and our mother, broke in Koda Dan Khan with an oath. What shall we do? Now there is no one to speak for us, or to teach us to go wisely. There remains Talahib Sahib. Go to him. He knows your talk and your heart. Keep the young men quiet. Listen to the old men, and obey. Koda Dan Khan, take my ring. The watch and chain go to thy brother. Keep those things for my sake, and I will speak to whatever god I may encounter, and tell him that the Kushra Kehil are good men. Ye have my leave to go. Koda Dan Khan, the ring upon his finger, choked audibly as he caught the well-known formula that closed an interview. His brother turned to look across the river. The dawn was breaking, and a speck of white showed on the dull silver of the stream. She comes, says the man under his breath. Can he live for another 2 hours? And he pulled the newly acquired watch out of his belt and looked uncomprehendingly at the dial, as he had seen Englishmen do. For 2 hours the bellying sail tacked and blundered up and down the river, Talentire still clasping Ord in his arms, and Koda Dan Khan chafing his feet. He spoke now and again of the district and his wife, but, as the end neared, more frequently of the later. They hoped he did not know that she was even then risking her life in a crazy native boat to regain him. But the awful foreknowledge of the dying deceived them. Wrenching himself forward, Ord looked through the curtains and saw how near was the sail. That's Polly, he said simply, though his mouth was writhed in agony. Polly, and the grimmest practical joke ever played on a man. Dick, you'll have to explain. And an hour later, Talentire met on the bank a woman in a gingham riding habit and a sun hat who cried out to him for her husband, her boy, and her darling, while Koda Dan Khan threw himself face down on the sand and covered his eyes.